So before I get into this video, and you are absolutely correct, this is one of those multiple recording videos because the past recordings were a little bit too sad, a little bit too somber, and I'm not going to put anyone through that. I do want to say that this is going to be the last time in a long while that I plan to talk about Blizzard or World of Warcraft, especially with ENDWALKER coming, which is an incredible opportunity for me to make new memories, meet new friends, just really have a good time, and just so much positivity, and for me to uplift the community, and like real life stuff that is, for the record, going insanely super well. I am very blessed and so thankful, especially after the past few years that were so rough. I just, to be blunt, don't have the space in my life to keep talking about something that is in my opinion, endless well of misery. So really, I'm only doing this last video because so many people did ask me for my thoughts, especially because that last video did really well, and to be honest, I don't expect this video to be doing anywhere remotely close to that. I'm expecting like 1,000 view Andy on this video, and for this to really be a failure flop of a video, to say the least, because it's going to be too long, and I am trying to really do the topic justice. For this video, I want to say I'm genuinely not mad at all. I'm just really intensely discouraged, as are others. I don't want to say like upset or like sad or crying, because I think that like that's just too much emotion for a game. Intensely discouraged is how I describe it. I think a lot of people are along the same lines, hence why people wanted to like contact me, DM me, and really just, I guess, give a voice to their concerns. For the record, thank you. That is actually so incredibly humbling. Thank you so much. Like, I never thought that I'd get to this point, to say the least. I never thought that people would be asking me for that. So seriously, thank you. It blows me away. I'm still just a dude recording into a little bit of video editing with some 14 footage. Like, it's so humbling, so thank you. Enough of that, let's get right into it. So Blizzard just announced a World of Warcraft Community Council, and just to be clear, and this was actually a line that I really said really sad before because I don't get it, but just to be clear, is this a different community council than the last thing you made? As far as I can tell, that's what it was, but I might be wrong. Or is this a reincarnation of that one? Is that one gone? Is it going to be in parallel? I'm not even trying to be snide here, I'm really not, but haven't we literally been down at least a similar road before? For me, I really do feel that it's quite disingenuous to claim that you haven't gotten feedback that is detailed and clear, and that you somehow cannot create a dialogue. There are a copious amount of tools and methods to take large volumes of not numeric data, because yes, it's going to be different tools, but there are many methods to take non-numeric data and break it down for analysis. Like, check out clinical psychology research methods, human ecology research methods, sociology research methods. You could find a lot in political science research methods even. There are copious amounts of methods that have been very well used, very much studied, very much in the research literature, to take large volumes of non-numeric data and break it down for analysis. And that's without even diving into AIML, artificial intelligence machine learning. I just know people are going to be like, what's that acronym? Where there's like sentiment analysis or anything even along that lines that is maybe a little bit more eloquent. That is going to be, again, very much out there. My feelings is that it's actually insulting, and probably the worst part of this is that even when World of Warcraft is, in my opinion, falling completely flat, Blizzard is still somehow insulting the intelligence of every player that plays. I laugh there probably because I'm just so beside myself at it. It's just disappointing. I don't even know how, when your product, because that's what it is, a product, is in such a bad position, you still somehow manage to find a way to insult everyone's intelligence. But I'm going to be playing along that this is somehow meant as a genuine way to reach out to the community and research your concerns, and it's most certainly not something to just like do a hand-waving gesture to, I don't even know, maybe rightfully infuriated shareholders, investors, yada yada. Like, I don't know what your exact reason for this is, but it's a little sus, in my opinion. Let's take this seriously for a second. And here are some of the problems, and there are quite a bunch more to say the least, but here are the 5 big red flags that are leading me to the conclusion that it's likely that you're not going to end up with the best data that you actually could. And to be quite honest, I wouldn't be placing much stock into this data myself. And if you guys have taken anything like a first year introductory intro stats course at a university, these will be fairly unremarkable things to bring up. You're going to be like, well, duh. And that's what makes it all the more sadder, is exactly that reason. Duh. First up is survivorship bias, and I realize that this is going to be called not nuanced, whatever that means. More on that in a second. But the fact is, survivorship bias 100% is here. You've lost key community members for good that I 100% would be calling experts in their domain. I will absolutely call them that. So yes, survivorship bias. WoW is currently bleeding top talent to its competitors, and I cringe at saying the word top talent. It is I'm not going to go into that here. It's going to be long enough. The second point is selection bias, and I'm exceedingly confident that the average World of Warcraft player probably will never hear about this. For me, I never even heard about this until community members were just lobbing it at me through comments, through Discord DMs, through Twitter DMs, and I was like, oh my lord. But that being said, I'm pretty sure that the average World of Warcraft player would be morbidly hesitant to take part in doing, even if they did know, but they would be morbidly hesitant to take part in essentially what, as far as I can tell, is pretty involved work for assumedly no pay. Again, I don't know the details. I haven't seen any contracts. I don't know. That is what I'm assuming. And likewise, I'm pretty sure that I wouldn't be the only one looking at this and assuming the same. Involved feedback like this takes time, expertise, and determination to acquire, and it'll sound like a zinger, but it's not meant to be a zinger. Putting together a cohesive understanding of all of the different systems and system lands is in fact quite arduous. It took me a good 2 weeks to get a good handle on it as a newer player that just started playing. The third point is kind of related, actually very much can be related to point number 2 on selection bias, but this is going to be volunteer bias, and this feeds into the selection bias as well, obviously. But when you get people knocking at your door, am I the only one that asks why they're knocking? What would motivate someone to take part in something like this? How will this volunteering population potentially skew your data? And my fourth point is probably confirmation bias at some level from the Blizzard team, because at the end of the day, from what I understood from this video, is you're also deciding what is nuanced.
But we really want to zero in on the most nuanced player comments.
This word really leapt out at me. So since you're accepting applications and have like a dream number of theoretically 100, there is clearly a vetting process going on. Who's doing this vetting process? What's their criterion for acceptance or rejection? And does their criterion make sense? It's kind of like when you read a legal contract and a key word isn't defined with an asterisk that leaves it up to interpretation, but any executive should know that in spades, and ambiguity is often a tool leveraged by them. So really my question is like, what is nuanced here? What does this exactly mean in this context? What are you trying to get with? It's ambiguous, and it could be like, okay, my personal interpretation of nuanced is, in this instance, people that completely say that Blizzard does nothing wrong and that they explicitly love all the content. Well, if that's your definition of nuanced, you're not going to be getting very good data, are you? Fifth one is going to be wrong sample size bias, but I kind of cringe at this. I'm trying to just keep it cohesive in my video, or consistent. Is this even really a bias? I admit I googled this and checked into it, and I wondered if I should even include it here. Is it a bias? Maybe not really, but to be frank, even in literally first year statistics courses, you have the concept of sample size slammed into all the books that are thrown at you from all over. Basically, if your data set is too small, it renders your entire set of data as a steaming heap of garbage. For real though, I want to talk about this a little bit. 100 people, or maybe a little bit more around there, exactly who said that it would be enough coverage to get a proper viewpoint into the
Solo players, mythic dungeon lovers, transmog collectors, wild classic enthusiasts, role players, achievement hunters, and more.
Listen, hear me out there. Even if I talk about my domain of Final Fantasy XIV and healers, tanks, ranged, DPS, or summoner, all things that I have taken into savage raids, I have played into the ground and back, investing literally thousands of hours into each. Even if I was in a magical group chat with all top-end raiders, your data would be garbage. Complete garbage. You should not design a game around explicitly what I want. In fact, when I am making video content, when I share my opinion, I will share it. I will be honest about it, but there are approaches to certain videos that I need to remove myself and remove my bias and be like, okay, what is actually going to be good, or what is going to be helpful? Because it's just I could go into new player guide and just be like, oh, they must know this, and this already, and it's just no, that's not how you introduce a topic to someone. No different than a mathematics professor that just assumes that you know how to get the eigenvalues when it's just dude, I just graduated from grade 12, which for the record, at least where I live, they don't teach eigenvalues in linear algebra, or they don't teach the mixture between calculus and linear algebra in high school. You get what I'm saying, so I'm not going to belabor it. What I'm trying to get at is the data we'd produce would reflect our wants and likely make the community at large miserable and ultimately really degrade the quality. Remove housing, they would remove gardening. In fact, they would burn gardening. They'd get rid of crafting, gathering too. They'd probably delete extreme trials because to them that's too easy and just a waste of resources, and make it so that everything was pooled into ultimate raids that were released one ultimate raid every month. With such an emphasis on raiding, it sounds pretty similar to a particular game out there, doesn't it? That leaves the question about what about mid-core players? What about players who clear Savage within the first month, or maybe they are just like 4 hours a week more casual Savage static? What about people who only do extremes? What about only expert roulettes? What about people that just like housing and gardening? What about people who just enjoy collecting shiny relic weapons and doing those quests? What about the people excited for the new Island Sanctuary feature coming to 14 and ENDWALKER? This point is getting too long, so I'm going to sum it up. But in a game that in 2014, just citing this article, hit 100 million subscribers, your 100-player pool, I genuinely doubt represents the population, and you risk a massive margin of error that is pretty concerning. And that's even before you start to tear them down into various categories like achievement hunters versus PvPers versus Mythic Plus players versus raiders, and these slices of the pie that could represent these various subsets are even smaller. So even assuming that all of that makes sense, every single last bit of that makes complete sense, and it doesn't really, because this video would be much shorter, and probably because of the shortness garner more views than it will, the way this is set up is actually extremely concerning. Getting real, actions speak louder than words, and it might be cliche to say that, but it is a darn true statement. And I'm still young, but I've learned very early on in my life that there are two types of people that talk and people that actually get things done, and oftentimes they're not going to be the ones talking. All of this entire video to me is peddling a whole whack of nonsense that to me, as someone who would actually like to see World of Warcraft improved more, genuinely indicates lip service is valued more than actual tangible player experience improvement. Need I really talk about how me as a gay guy is getting representation with the dang bowl of fruits? I mean, we're deleting the women and replacing them with fruits. I literally cannot make this up. How is this going to help you retain players? Anyone? Does anyone know? I don't. First person to say I'm probably stupid, but I just don't get it. Explain it like I'm 5. How's this gonna help? This video from start to finish is, in my opinion, a manipulated, engineered construct to appease, I'm guessing, shareholders, because I can't really tell who else it could be aimed for. And if you say players, I'm gonna say BS, and that's basically what the rest of this video is going to be. So ironically enough, when the word nuance was brought up, which is a word that really stuck to me, I think nuance,
Most nuanced player comments,
really should be viewed as a two-way street, that you need to take criticism in a nuanced way. Like when I was doing my human cadaver anatomy course in university and I got confused at exactly which yellow string is this. Oh, is that fascia? Everything's fascia. Oh, that's fascia. Anyone who's been through like medical cadavers probably can relate. Oh, everything's fascia. That was like the running joke at the time. But I digress. But my professor was gobsmacked that I didn't get the right yellow string right, and it's just like, that is not a nerve, that is... Like, should I have raged and started throwing things around the lab? Freaking course not. Absolutely not. No. So inappropriate. But I'm gonna reel back to the topic. But I feel like that kind of thing needs to be laid super clear. Nuance and the ability to take criticism and use it to improve is fundamental, and I am respectfully alarmed at how fragile a company product is when that company product, a subscription-based model business product, gets criticism that can be used to improve it. I am respectfully shocked. None of this is personal. It has never been personal, and those who are making it personal are incredibly out of line. But the product itself should be criticized because we want to see it improve. People pay testers and different like study pool groups, incredible focus test groups, very large amounts of money. And like talking about nuanced, and I'm gonna bring up this point again just because it bothers me, is how are you defining nuanced? Is it simply going to be people who say exactly what is hoped to be said? Nuanced doesn't mean positive or uplifting. It doesn't. Nuanced means nuanced. That doesn't mean positive or uplifting. You're looking for a very different word there, and based around some community sentiments, there's a massive disparity between some of your potential biggest influencers, or at least were your potential biggest influencers, and their feedback and their treatment. I want to take a moment and really jog everyone's memory that there is literally a PTR, a public test realm, public forum for people to give feedback on. Now let me jog everyone's memory on the Mercy Megathreads on the Overwatch forums that has a total of 21,284 posts in it. Note that the thread title even says feedback thread continued. Continued, huh? 21,284 posts. They even say we appreciate your feedback as it will assist us and provide insight on improving your Overwatch experience. 21,284. Not a single one of those was constructive or nuanced. Really? Also, let me jog everyone's memory that there is beyond an avalanche of amazingly detailed feedback from some of the most reputable players I have seen in any game ever. Like, take Stoops for PvP. I don't think I've ever heard someone speak so eloquently about PvP in any game before. Is he not nuanced enough for you? One even doesn't even need to look past the thumbnails, which makes this all the more discouraging. Massive problem. Boosters, liars, toxic, so toxicity, SoloQ problems. Could not possibly be laid out any more clearly than it is. And there's like 10 more amazing examples that come immediately to my mind. I've said it before and I'll say it again, you're bleeding top talent. In fact, at this point you are pretty much gift wrapping them and handing them off as Christmas presents to like your competitors. I never expected to be playing with some of these names. I looked up to some of these names even though we were in different games. And now it's like they're here in 14 with me and I'm like, what kind of clown world am I in? Moving on from that point, we're kind of playing stupid now, like all of us, aren't we? We have them saying, players telling them
Players telling us how they feel about the game
improvements
leads
to the
directly
game.
to improvements that we
At
make.
which point exactly were many of the concerns raised quite literally thousands of times across Reddit, YouTube, Twitch, across your very own forums that you could trivially data mine your own forums? Those are in your databases, are they not? So that is data you own, data that a developer can get into the database and run from your company all of your data mined like stuff and really like pour across the data. And I'm gonna say, because a lot of people are gonna be like, it's not that hard. Excuse me, actually I know exactly how to do that. I was taught that actually in university courses explicitly. And let's just stop being coy and pretending string parsing and analysis is somehow above us. I really hate some of the comments that I've read that have made these copious excuses, and it's just like, oh, well, you've never programmed. And I'm just like, excuse me, actually, I have. I've actually done exactly this problem before. In fact, there are TensorFlow and TensorFlow adjacent Python libraries that make it a joke, and Python isn't even my strongest language. Like, it's just like, sentiment analysis is a thing too. Even if you want to get a little bit easier with it, sentiment analysis is a thing, and there's libraries for even that, not to mention a plethora of research. And so this claim about maybe just not understanding things, you sit on a veritable miniature like treasure mine of data and feedback. I'd say hire even just 3 data scientists or AIML researchers, and then you'd have an eruption of information at your disposal. And is that justifiable? Let's not forget the 155 million pay package that has been very well documented online. That sort of money, even a quarter of it, even if you spent just a quarter of it explicitly on things, you could have one of the most powerful teams on the entire planet of PhD and master's level AI ML researchers. You could start your, like, for God's sake, it just frustrates me. Or if you'd like to say be less technical, have people scribe down what your content creators were saying. And they said it over and over and over again. Even coming from 14, I have a good idea what they want. And like, it's just like, I'm not sure what you're looking at your council to say that's different than what the community has said at large. I only played WoW during your Shadowlands expansion. I'm not even a veteran by any means. I also quit within like a few months. The first thing is balance your jobs. Few things make people want to like quit or be upset as being unable to play what they want. Their job that they play is their lens into the world, and that is being whacked into orbit or out from orbit from bad balancing decisions, and this makes people quit. Task 2. Casual player content. You have currently been putting almost all of your eggs into Mythic Plus and hardcore raiding. Diversify your content. No amount of mount farming for Invincible a decade or whatever, how many years later, doesn't count. Task number 3 is going to be stop ripping out old content and put back in the old content. Whatever excuse you're trying to make to deny this doesn't make sense when your competitor that I have been playing in intimately for like a decade avoids FOMO like this, like the plague. We're about to enter ENDWALKER, and I haven't suddenly lost access to Satasha, Carpet Belt Mines. I haven't lost access to more drama with Ariana Grande in it, or its Relic Weapon quest, the Realm Reborn Relic Weapons, or raids from that time. There is really no excuse for this, especially when people are complaining about little to do. You don't need to generate these assets, you already have them. You don't need to generate the quest tags or have writers or whatever. This is already stuff that you guys own. This is just stuff that you took away access from. Why? Actually, and this will be like, I guess, task 3.5 is instead take a page from 14 and make new content that incentivizes players to revisit that older content. Give people an excuse, and that's all a lot of people are asking for, is a freaking excuse. Just stop locking behind FOMO with time locking. Give people an excuse to go back. Next thing is going to be balance out PvP. And yes, I know just because I just talked about the stoop stuff is like, it's immediately on my mind, is this can mean things like add SoloQ. This can mean things like have a separate queue where gear doesn't matter. I know me and many others would prefer that versus the boost buyers. Or whatever you call them. Like, I remember when I was doing PvP, me and my boyfriend would go into there and we would just get absolutely destroyed just because people were at, I don't want to say max item level, but very close, and we were at like just trying to gear up. And PvP and the start of their Shadowbringers expansion was primarily the way to get geared out, and so we just got absolutely smeared across the ground, and it was incredibly unfun. So I would definitely be looking at like a queue where skill actually matters, because to be frank, the gear one really sucked. I was not impressed. I was like, wow, people praise WoW PvP over 14 PvP, and this is it? I'm like, I'm just gonna stick to like other games for competitive stuff, not that. Peace and love. And it's funny because people are like saying like, oh, when they synced up the item levels, PvP failed and they had to revert it. Okay, listen to me. What if you did one queue with the item level synced and one queue without it? And whichever one dies out is the one that dies out. Then you can wait more time in queue. And remember that this actually works to the metrics very well. If you have people sitting around in your game, they're still sitting around in your game waiting for a queue for item level synced PvP. Can you please explain to me again how that's a bad idea? Now, the fifth task is to stop the insanely stingy grinds and the time gating. Like, when I played your Shadowbringers expansion, I called the currencies stingia because it was so time gated, or just rather just grindy, I guess, for that particular one. And it's like, oh, I did this thing for other forms of content. Oh, I whacked into a time gate. Oh, I did this other thing. Bam, gotta wait a week for that one. Even Covenant swaps and Conduit energies were some of the worst experiences that I had in your expansion. I played a druid and it was so freaking miserable because I'm someone that plays all the roles. I heal, I DPS, I tank, I do range DPS, I do melee DPS in 14. And so I was just like, oh, the druid's gonna be a shoo-in for me.
Conduit energy has another plan for me.
Really keep going, but I think that this is all stuff that is already known because nothing that I brought up is that revolutionary, is it? And this is just 5 points. Like, nothing should be of a shock to anyone, really. And if it's a shock, I really wonder what you're actually doing during your workday. Peace and love, but it's like if I had an employee come to me and be like, oh, I don't know this, I would be like, what have you done the past 8 hours of your day? How do you not know? Just saying. Next up is, but very related to the last point, is it's apparently hard to have a conversation with tens of thousands of people. Bull. Bull. Absolute nonsense. This is actually another thing that is insulting to hear. And again, this isn't personal. People, I'm criticizing the product and the practices of the product, not the people. And just, it really got to me that they edited in a bunch of people whose names I don't know, I literally don't remember, faces that I don't remember, and it felt like they were all just saying, yes, 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 it's hard, it's hard, it's hard, it's hard. No, and no. And that's not a personal criticism. This is not personal. And that's why I hate when people edit in faces into videos, because it's like, I'm criticizing the product. I'm not criticizing you as an individual. You as an individual, I truly, from the depths of my heart, wish you nothing but the #1 success in your life, and for you to get everything you want. I want you to have beautiful wedding, beautiful kids, whatever. I want you to get what you want. I'm criticizing the product and criticizing this kind of process. It was like super awkward to me, but it was just like everyone was like, yes, this is hard. Oh my god, it's so hard, blah, 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 with like a bunch of chain editing. And no, absolute no. I understand what kind of psychological approach you're trying to do with this kind of editing, and I don't know if it's intentional or not, but it's where you're trying to appeal to people from not only a position of authority, but you're now trying to appease to people because now you have multiple people in positions of authority saying, yes, it's hard, yes, it's hard, yes, it's hard. No. 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 It's not. I don't care how your PR team spins it. This is insulting to your entire player base. The feedback has been crystal clear. It has been basically chanted at you, and pretending that it's somehow hard to understand or communicate is disingenuous at best. And at worst, a lot more sinister than that. Like, even just look at the PTR, the public test realm. There are changes that are put into the PTR way before the expansion's launch. That's how, like, Wowhead and Icy Veins gets all this, like, stuff way ahead of time. I know, at least I check Wowhead for it. And then elaborate, some of the people posting in there elaborate in more detail than, to be frank, you deserve as a free community service, that are utterly ignored months before an expansion even releases. None of most of the concerns with your Shadowbringers expansion should have been very, very, very well ahead of time known from your PTR feedback. But this is another thing that I don't really understand, is it's insane to me. It's just something that I just cannot grasp, that a company with this level of resources could claim that it's difficult to converse with the community and understand its concerns. I am very, very far from a big YouTuber, and I've been making content for a bit over a year now, and currently, as I make this video, I'm averaging at 15k views a day. Yeah, my views are far healthier than my subscriber count. I guess people just hate to click that darn button, which unfortunately makes me sad. And people have been like, oh, haha, why aren't you growing as much as other people? And I'm just like, I don't know, people just don't want to hit the damn button, guys. I don't know. But with this kind of views comes a deluge of comments, but way more than the comments or like open active Discord communications is Twitter DMs, Discord direct messages, and other forms of communication. It's because especially like so many people are like really shy and they don't really want to like put themselves out there, so it's just like a lot of it's like not even seen. It's like a lot behind the scenes. So I need to like look at it from my perspective, and it's like I, as a single individual dude in his 20s, can somehow manage this on my own, and I have a conversation and I understand general trends. Obviously, I cannot reply to every single comment, much as I used to and really want to. I need to be clear. This isn't even my day job, guys. This isn't even my day job. I literally love this. And so like when Blizzard says this, it's like, what are you people doing? Like you could easily hire an entire team of people just to do this. 155 million is a lot of money, guys. I mean, think about that. You could pay them all 6-figure salary, and you could hire a lot. Like, let's open up a disaster of a video that I did. My Summoner Ultimate Guide I made when my channel was still a baby, around 200 or so subscribers. 101,000 views. For a no-name nobody, you are darn right, I am proud of that. But from this, I can easily go through my comments, I can go through my DMs that I had for it, the private tutoring that I've given to like people. I say private tutoring like it was bad, like just helping people like in-game with this. And for a no-name nobody, it's just like there was so much feedback, and I can honestly quite easily go through my comments and understand things I messed up on, things to improve, things to perhaps remove in the future that were too many details, and I could write down these general sentiments and notes in literally Notepad, not even giving it the dignity of Microsoft Word, Notepad, and it works. And I can write all the sentiments down in there and use that as feedback to improve my process and what I do in the future. That takes all of 10 minutes or so. But even at the end of the day, inviting like 100 players to a new Counsel forum that are going to be filtered is gonna... what is that gonna achieve? This is at face value, just trying to appeal to someone. In my opinion, this is going to be shareholders, because the players that have been hand delivering high quality feedback to you, practically gift wrapped with a bow, can see right through this. This is as transparent as it gets, in my opinion. It is disingenuous to claim that you haven't gotten feedback that is detailed. It is disingenuous to say that you cannot somehow create a larger analysis of problem pain points. There are copious amounts of methods to take large volumes of data, non-numerical data, and break it down for analysis. Numerical data is even easier. I can't even think of like a clever outro. I just hope that everyone is doing well, everyone's doing safe, and again, all of my criticisms are against a product business processes, not against an individual. To be frank, this is the last video. I give up, and I never want to talk about WoW or Blizzard ever again. Ever.